Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Weekly Wind-Up with me, Dave Hodgson. To leave or not to leave? That isn't the question that Shakespeare would understand, but what does it mean as we approach the big day of the Brexit poll? It's extraordinary. The Tory party is at war with itself. Labour cutting itself in two. Here at KLTV, we decided to cut out all the hype and talk to local people who believe firmly that they are right, but are more interested in quality talk rather than standing behind a barricade of ludicrous claims and just shouting. So, welcome from me, Dave Hodgson, and the person representing either in or out. This week, it's Alex Lukic from the Better Out campaign, and he's joined me in the KLTV studio. Alex, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Now, can you, first of all, just explain to us in simple terms why Britain should leave the EU?
Well, thanks for having me here, Dave. The main reason we need to leave the EU is because we've given up far too much control over our own destiny, essentially. We've given up £380 billion of our own money. That's the amount of money we have sent to the European Union since we've joined. It's an organisation that's grown far beyond trade. Its EU laws now make up 2/3 of UK law. So essentially what we've got here is a supranational organisation with highly paid people in it who write rules that affect our daily lives, but we can't vote those people out who make the laws because the EU Commission are not directly elected by us.
I thought we had these things called MEPs.
We've got things, yeah, we do have MEPs, of course.
And I didn't mean to call them things, but you know what I mean.
No, they're perfectly respectable people who want to help, but the MEPs don't write the laws that the EU passes.
No, but they can vote on them, surely.
They vote on them, they can vote to pass them or they can vote them down. One of the main problems with it, though, is the UK's portion of the MEPs in the European Parliament is a small proportion of the overall total. So ultimately, we only have a small say in the decision-making process. So things do go through that we wouldn't want to go through. So if we left the European Union, the only parliament that would be passing laws would be our own parliament. And then later on, if we didn't like those laws, 5 years down the line, we could elect a different parliament who could change the laws completely to represent the wishes of the voters. But as things stand at the moment, as I said, 2/3 of UK laws come handed down from us from the EU. And so we've lost a great deal of control on a great deal of matters, and that's not how it should be.
As a neutral observer, which I steadfastly will continue to be, I can't help but feel that it's been a very divisive campaign. Do you regret the more outlandish and extravagant claims of some of your more, shall I say, excitable fellow Exiters?
I think so far what we've seen over the last few weeks is a lot of headline grabbing claims. It feels like the more ridiculous the claim, the more coverage it gets, kind of naturally, I suppose, with the mainstream media. And also what's happened is the government machinery, the civil servants, and the non-governmental bodies have come out with more claims. Now that we're in the 28 days before the referendum, the government has to take a backward step. It can't back one side over the other. So I think it does open up a space now for more mature debate. People can look at the facts, look at how it all works, and make their mind up on how they personally want to vote.
As I said, introducing you, it almost seems like the Tory party's at war.
Well, ultimately, you do have a bit in the background this idea of who's going to be the leader, and various Conservative MPs saying, well, David Cameron maybe shouldn't continue as Prime Minister if we vote to leave the European Union, because he's pinned himself firmly onto one side of the argument, so they're doubting how much they can really trust him. But this goes far beyond a single Prime Minister, it goes far beyond a single government. It's a decision that will have ramifications decades down the line. Ultimately, at a general election, you've got to wait a maximum of 5 years before you can completely change the parliament, change the government if you want. But this is a decision that is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. It could well be the last chance we get, because if we vote to stay in, I think we'll become further and further integrated, and it'll be almost impossible to extract ourselves from the clutches of the EU.
Yeah, claims and counterclaims exist, but I've seen a report by a leading manufacturing columnist who made an important point that if we leave it, it will give France a golden opportunity to squeeze Britain out of an association with Airbus. We manufacture the wings at BAE, and shipping them to Airbus headquarters isn't the most cost-effective way of making an aeroplane, and Boeing have got a great big lead over us that way. So isn't it true that the French may be absolutely wanting us to leave so that they can take all the manufacturing on in Toulon, and 2,500 jobs go to France and 2,500 jobs leave the UK? And that's only one probability. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't really think the French would want us to leave, because when you look at the payments made to their farmers from the Common Agricultural Policy, obviously we fund a great deal of that.
Yes, but they'd still be in it, wouldn't they?
Well, they'd still be in it, but the European Union budget would reduce significantly if we left, because we contribute a net amount of £8.5 billion a year to the EU budget, and we've contributed £380 billion since we joined. As for Airbus and manufacturers like that, you've got to look also at where the experience is. They're already established in Britain, they've got the expertise. We've got great manufacturers up and down the country. We've got Hitachi further up in the northeast who are building new trains, and a great deal more besides. So they're coming here because we have the best people and great experience in manufacturing, modern methods. So there's no reason at all why that needs to change. A lot of it, obviously, another point that needs making is trade with the other EU countries will continue when we leave. There's no doubt about that. And there's no doubt that other countries want to continue trading with us. You don't need a trade deal to do that. I mean, if you look at where most of our goods come from, they're coming from outside the EU.
However large or small your business, attracting new customers requires dedication and a lot of patience. Just like fishing, but you also need the right gear. Rods,
reels, lines, hooks, sinkers, lures, tackle box, tackle bag, net, bait, gaff, gloves, clothes, pocket knife, wrench.
or you could simply advertise with KLTV. Online, grow your business and your clientele. KLTV, your vision made reality. Should have gone to KLTV.
Okay, just to bring it down to your personal views, what are you hoping to see if the public do vote to leave?
Well, personally, what I want if we vote to leave is a trade. I think we will get a trade agreement with the other EU countries, and I want to see Great Britain using this opportunity, regaining its seat on the World Trade Organization, where the EU currently sits for us, re-establishing our ties with Commonwealth nations in particular, and looking around the globe really. Most people who want to leave want Britain to continue to be an outward-looking global nation trading, and I think we can establish more trade agreements around the world, but we can also take back control on other things where it matters. So I do think we need to regain control over our borders and regain control over our fishing waters and take more steps to protect our industries. So I think we'll be more outward looking, but we'll also be able to take decisions in our own interests.
You've hinted at this already, but do you really believe it will be the end of the matter? Because I see polls saying 49 in, 49 out. If it is as close as that, don't you think you as an exit person or anybody as an in person will take that and say, oh, fair dues, you won by maybe the odd 1,000 people, we'll never ask again. Aren't both sides, whoever loses, going to be saying, no, that wasn't fair, let's do it again?
Well, I think we can look at, for example, the Scottish referendum, where it wasn't quite that close. But since then, there's been a movement away from the idea of having a second referendum. I'm perfectly willing to accept the result of this referendum and to only hold another one again when it looks like maybe the people's opinion has changed. This is everyone's opportunity to have their say. If it's a close result, I think some people might make that argument, but also I think everyone's had the opportunity to have their say. That's the decision, and it'll be respected either way. I think what it might do is bring more people to one side or the other, where more people maybe weren't decided before. And I think it's a debate that will go on, whatever the decision is, and particularly if it's a close result. But ultimately, this is the opportunity for everyone to have their say, and I think everyone can agree to respect that.
Do you believe it lies with the Labour voters?
I think, interestingly enough, what I've seen at my street stalls, going out campaigning, we've had a lot of help from people, and we all seem to agree really that the traditional Labour voters are all really determined. They're almost more determined than traditional Conservative voters. Though there's a bit of a divide on both sides really. But I think that there is an argument being made that the Labour voters do kind of hold the swing vote in this matter, but I'm not really sure. I think there's a lot of undecided people kind of across the spectrum, across the demographic of the electorate. But I think it is something where the Labour Party itself has come out. It's campaigning for remaining in the European Union, but there's a detachment from that and a lot of their support. So to that extent, if you were just looking at where political parties are and their support, if you just added that up, you'd think it would be a clear result for Remain. But I think a lot of Labour supporters aren't really following the party line on that, and they can see the problems that exist and how the EU doesn't really act in the interests of ordinary workers.
Just finally then, how do you intend to continue, because the day is rapidly coming up now, with your campaign, and you hinted at it that you have a stall and things like that. How do you intend to continue to campaign between now and voting day?
Well, we've had, as I said, we've had a lot of stalls so far. I've been focusing mainly in Dewsbury, Batley and Spen areas of Kirklees. So between now and referendum day, we're going to have stalls in Denbydale, in Cleckheaton, in Dewsbury. We're going to keep going around leafleting, knocking on doors, promoting the message in the local press. And obviously, because really what we feel is when people know more about how it works, how much it has control over our everyday lives, how much it costs us as well to be a member of the European Union, then they naturally come towards wanting to vote to leave. So we're out there spreading the message, and I'm not really seeing much activity at all from the Remain side out on the streets. And when it does happen, it's a great deal more half-hearted. But there's a lot of determined people on our side, and we think it's going to be a very strong Leave vote in Kirklees at the moment, the way it's looking. But we've got to make that, as you said, it could be a close result. Our job's to try and make that as big a Leave vote as possible.
Many thanks to Alex for putting the case forward for exiting the EU eloquently, and you see, it can be done without shouting and arguing. Next week, the case for staying in is up for discussion. If you've any comments to make on what has been said, you can get in touch by Twitter, #@theweeklywindup on Facebook, or by email info@kirkleeslocaltv.com. Thanks for being with us. I hope you've learnt something today. I'll be with you again in a few days. So, to you, take care of yourself. Looking forward to seeing you already. Thanks to all the crew for putting this together. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye. you.